So my name is Liad, and I'm head of Here Mobility. And I want to talk a little bit about the future of mobility and how we envision it. So when we look at the growth of the mobility as a service market, we look at a potential market of $1.5 trillion market, and we try to imagine how this world will look like with mobility as a service. And I think we all share the same vision of a market that is going to be very well connected with multiple mobility services, which will enable us to move from point A to point B in a reliable, easy, fast way. On the way, it will also reduce traffic, reduce congestion, and will help us to build a much more efficient mobility market and much more efficient mobility ecosystem. And then we look at the reality, and the reality is quite different. In this reality, in today's world, we see the rise of ride-hailing companies who completely disrupted the transportation ecosystem and entered into the mobility as a service world. And what we see is not an open market where you can choose variety of services. On the contrary, we see very few players like Uber and Lyft in the US, like Yandex in Russia. This slide is actually outdated because we see Careem. Careem is no longer exist. Careem is part of Uber now. And in India, we have Uber and Ola. And in Southeast Asia, we have Grab, who just got another round of $2 billion. So this space is getting more and more concentrated. And we see that this space is also not creating mobility efficiency. We see that we have more congestion, we have more traffic, we have more pollution, and that's because each one of the ride-hailing companies are trying to maximize their own service. So if we want to build this future of a better mobility for everyone, we need actually to disrupt the disruptors. And at Here Mobility, we introduced a new concept. Instead of having monopolies in the world, we introduced an open, global, neutral mobility marketplace. And the idea is very, very simple. If we want to build an open market, we need a marketplace that brings together demand and supply in one place. And we are very open. It means that every mobility service provider, every company who provides movement from point A to point B can now sell this movement in our marketplace. And we welcome everyone to join the marketplace, from micromobility like bikes and scooters, etc., to taxis, private hire, to public transportation. Everyone can now participate in the game. And on the other side, on the demand side, it's not an application game, it's a platform game, which means we want to bring other businesses to have accessibility to the inventory in the marketplace. For example, to bring hotels to enable them to provide mobility services for their guests, or airlines to provide mobility services and first and last miles to the passengers, or for healthcare for patients, or corporates to help their employees to move better from point A to point B, but to create a neutral open mobility ecosystem with the marketplace. In the upcoming few minutes, I want to explain a little bit how this new model can help us build a much better, much more efficient mobility ecosystem. How can it will enable us reduce traffic, reduce congestion, build the efficiency that we want. First, I want to maybe touch a little bit what is mobility efficiency, what I refer to mobility efficiency. Efficiency, the way we measure it, is how many driven kilometers can we save to the world, how many driven kilometers are unnecessary, and we can reduce them by different activities we create at Here Mobility on top of the marketplace. And our vision is to create a competitive mobility landscape in order to create mobility efficiency. So let's go one by one. The first one is to create multimodality. Multimodality is the ability to move from point A to point B with multiple transportations. So in order to do that, you need multiple transportations. You can't have one service. And we bring together versatile mobility services, as I mentioned, like e-scooters, bike sharing, taxis, private hire, ferries, and more and more. And we want to rely on the public transportation as the main way to move from point A to point B and to solve first and last mile. And that, with many researchers support that, will enable us to increase efficiency and to decrease number of unnecessary rides. That's the first thing. The second thing, by the way, right now, as of today, we already, in HereMobility, have more than 550 different partners. We launched it only a year ago. We already have more than 550 different partners who joined the mobility marketplace, with a total number of vehicles that joined the marketplace of more than 1.5 million vehicles worldwide, in Europe, in North America, South America. We now expand very fast in India, and we're going to be in APAC very soon. And just to give a better way of understanding the scale, that's the scale pretty much of what Lyft has currently in their ecosystem. Lyft has approximately 1.9 million vehicles, Uber has 3 million, and we already have 1.5 million vehicles, which means that we can be very much comparable to the big players, but with a completely different concept, an open mobility marketplace. The second thing that we can build on top of this marketplace is to help cities to become smart cities. Cities today struggle to regain control over transportation. And in order to regain control, they need data. They need an access to data. And what they currently have is very limited data. And this is how the transportation behaves in the city. Because cities focus on traffic. They know in real time what is the traffic in the city, but they don't have this view of how people are moving around from where to where and by which means of transportation. And without knowing it in real time, it's impossible to build a better transportation and to regain control. And with our marketplace, what we can do is to externalize this data of how people are moving around, because only see the traffic is see the symptom of a larger problem. It's like going to a doctor and measuring the fever, but it says something is wrong, but you don't know exactly what is wrong with you, or measuring the blood pressure. But in order to understand what is the problem, you need to do blood tests, maybe MRI, in order to cope with the real problem. And when cities doesn't have this data, they cannot really address the real problems. And what we're going to do is to have this data, and we are the only one who can have this overlook of the entire ecosystem, because we are not one service provider. We're a platform, we're neutral. We have everything on our hands. And then we can help cities to orchestrate much better and to rebalance the different transportations in a city in order to regain mobility efficiency, in order to regain control. And as you see, you can then be much more efficient in the way that transportation is managed and orchestrated in a city. The third building block is car occupancy. Today, the average occupancy of a single car is 1.1 people per ride. This is terrible. If we could somehow magically increase this number from 1.1 people in a car to 1.4 or 1.5, we practically eliminate traffic. But how can we do that? And today, the concept in the market, the general concept, is the carpool concept. And the carpool said something very simple. Carpool said, let's join or meet people that going to the same place at the same time, and let's try to bring them together at the same car. And it doesn't really work. And we see for a long time this concept doesn't really work. And the reason it doesn't work is because the cost for a driver to take a passenger with him is extremely high. It's extremely high not because the direct cost is very high, but the indirect cost is very high. When you want to bring someone with you in your own private car, you give up your privacy. You can't hear podcast. You can't hear loud music. You can't have what you want to do. You have private car because you want to have your privacy, and you lose it. The second thing you lose is your flexibility. If I, for example, want to leave work 7:30 in the evening, let's say I plan to leave work 7:30 in the evening, I don't want to commit to 7:30. And if I would like to go, I don't know, 10 minutes earlier or 15 minutes afterwards, but if I commit to it, I can't. Or if I want to go to a pharmacy on my way, I can't. So these indirect costs are extremely high. And the way we see that the compensation is working in carpooling is by two things mainly. First is by sharing fuel price, and the second is to tell you you're a better person. And these two factors empirically doesn't work. It doesn't really compensate drivers to take passengers with them in the carpool model. So we at Here Mobility decided to take an opposite approach of carpooling. We want the same thing. We want to bring people together to the same ride, but we do it in an opposite way. Instead of trying to force two strangers to come together to the same ride, let's try to find the places in life where people really want to cooperate. People want other people to join in the ride, but they can't. They can't because they lack the right platform and they lack the communication. And when do we meet these kind of places? It's always with a social network. I can give you an example. My daughter has activities outside of her school, and I or my wife need to take her back and forth. I really want to cooperate with other parents to this ride. And in order to do that, I can't do that on WhatsApp because WhatsApp is not the right platform. But I want to cooperate. And this is why we created SOMO, derived from social mobility, where people can now cooperate with each other on the social level. And that's how we can help them to be brought together and to drive together to the same place at the same time because they have the same purpose. And it's a social network. And the fourth building block, and that's the end of this talk, is technology and data. We now build algorithms, smart algorithms, using machine learning and deep learning and optimization to create a much better routing for the suppliers. We provide a dispatch system and a better routing optimization. And we currently save between approximately 25% of driven kilometers for the suppliers who uses our system, especially on the pre-book rides. When you have pre-book, when you know where you're going to go, you can optimize these routes and you can reduce 25-30% driven kilometers, and you can reduce approximately 20%, 15 to 20% number of drivers for the exact same tasks. And as of today, at Here Mobility, we save to the world 1,500 driven kilometers every day, and we are planned to save approximately 100,000 driven kilometers a day by the end of this year, and that will only be the beginning. Thank you.